Daniel. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in a fit of rage, demanded that they bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego before him. So they brought them before the king. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "It is true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you don't serve my gods, and that you don't pay homage to the golden statue that I erected. Now if you are ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, trigon, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, you must bow down and pay homage to the statue that I had made. If you don't pay homage to it, you will immediately be thrown into the midst of the furnace of my blazing fire. Now, who is that God who can rescue you from my power?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king Nebuchadnezzar, "We do not need to give you a reply concerning this. If our God, whom we are serving, exists, he is able to rescue us from the furnace of blazing fire, and he will rescue us, O king, from your power as well. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we don't serve your gods, and we will not pay homage to the golden statue that you have erected."
Thanks, Justin. Hi, everyone. Hi. My name is Jono, for those I haven't met yet. I just want to start by saying that I'm not a biblical scholar, nor have I been to Bible college, but what I'll be sharing tonight are my thoughts on the topic of trusting God. And I hope you might find something helpful or encouraging that you can take away from what I share tonight. Now, for those of you who weren't here last week, or if you haven't had the chance to go on our Facebook page to listen to back to Denise's sermon last week, Denise gave us a take on trusting God through the lens of her spiritual gift of skepticism. That God remains trustworthy, faithful, and true, whether we trust him or not. That was the message that really stood out to me. That God's character doesn't change, and that he remains consistently trustworthy despite our human tendency to doubt. Tonight, I want to talk about what trust looks like and how we might grow it. Now, I've been thinking about a question recently, and maybe it's something that you've thought about or considered as well, which is, what is the difference between trust and faith? Because we talk about faith and trust almost interchangeably. They seem to go hand in hand, don't they? But I think there are some key differences that are worth unpacking. Let me tell you about the first time I went rock climbing. In my first year of moving to Melbourne, one of my friends asked me if I wanted to go indoor rock climbing. I thought, what a great idea. There used to be this place near the uni that I went to that I would pass by on the tram. It was a very popular spot for climbing enthusiasts. It had this big glass building, and you could sort of see from outside looking in all the climbing walls. It always looked like a lot of fun to go to. So I go with my friend to this climbing gym, and we get harnessed up, and we walk on over to listen to a safety orientation from one of the instructors. They literally show you the ropes, explain how the different colored grips indicate different difficulty levels, and demonstrate how to properly belay your climbing buddy. For those who aren't familiar with the term, the person belaying is the person on the ground whose job it is to ensure that the rope catches their climbing partner if they fall. So, armed with this knowledge, I start climbing the wall, and I slowly start to realize why I've never done this before. I'm afraid of heights. I'm about 6 meters off the ground, and I can't go any further. My fear paralyzes me. and I'm stuck halfway up this wall. I couldn't even make myself go back down for fear of slipping and falling. So I shout down to my friend, "I can't go any further, I'm tapping out." And they yell back, "Okay, just let go, I've got you." So even though I knew my friend was paying attention during the safety orientation, and I was right there next to him when the climbing instructor had checked their belaying technique and gave them the tick of approval, I still needed a minute to tell my fingers, which at this point seemed glued to the wall, to just let go. I believed that I wouldn't come crashing to the ground if I let myself fall, but ultimately I still had to decide to trust that my friend would catch me and just let go. And so I did. And boy, was that terrifying. That feeling of surrendering control and trusting that my friend's grip on the rope would not slip and that I wasn't going to come crashing down. See, while I had faith that my friend would catch me, it wasn't until I let go of the wall that I allowed myself to actually trust them to. Faith is believing, trust is the decision. You can have faith that a chair will hold you up, but you don't trust it until you sit down. Faith is believing that the pilot knows how to fly, but trust is getting on the airplane even when you don't see the cockpit. You can have faith that God provides, but you don't trust him until you stop trying to control everything yourself. Faith is believing, trust is the decision. Trust is faith in action. So the story that we heard Justin read out before from the book of Daniel is one of the many examples we have in the Bible of what faith in action looks like. Here we see 3 Hebrew or Jewish men whose nation had just been conquered by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar and were now living in exile in Babylon. Fun fact, I found this out while I was writing the sermon. The Hebrews were likely started being known as Jews around this time because the Babylonians would refer to the exiled Israelites from the tribe of Judah as Judeans or as Jews. So the more you know. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whose Hebrew names were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, along with the prophet Daniel, were among the Israelites that were considered to be the best and the brightest. In Daniel 1, the author tells us that the Israelites who were chosen to be part of the king's court were of royal and noble descent, young men in whom there were no physical defect and who were handsome, well-versed in all kinds of wisdom, well-educated, and having keen insight. My guess is that after conquering Jerusalem, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the removal of these elite Israelites from the common people to prevent an uprising or rebellion. And on top of that, King Nebuchadnezzar tries to integrate these exiled Israelites by teaching them the Babylonian way of life. When Nebuchadnezzar puts up a 90-foot golden statue, for context, that's about like a 7 or 8-story building, it's erected in the plains of Dura, a flat region of Babylon where the statue would have dominated the landscape. Imagine going out to the outback and the only thing you can see for miles and miles was this bright, glimmering statue of the Babylonian king, which stood as a symbol of his immense power over all the people. So Nebuchadnezzar then orders everyone to bow down and worship this statue whenever they heard any kind of music. Any refusal to worship the statue would have been seen as a direct violation to Nebuchadnezzar's rule and authority, and an act of treason, a crime worthy of death by fire. By the way, I'll be referring to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego as Sam for short, because I'm a bit ESL and I get the names a bit tongue-twisty. So Sam it is. So Sam are accused of not bowing down before the statue. They are put on trial before the king for their crime. Nebuchadnezzar then gives them one final chance to prove their loyalty to him. He essentially says, are you really not going to worship me? Are you not going to change your mind? Do you really think your God can rescue you from me? Now, Sam's response then starts with, we do not need to give you a reply concerning this. See, the question wasn't actually, do you think your God will save you from the fire, which when I was rereading this, that's what I thought it was. It was, do you think your God will save you from my power? So if we look at how Sam begins their response, they already know they're going to be thrown into the fire. They're actually demonstrating trust in God by accepting their fate, knowing full well that by refusing to worship this king, it was a one-way ticket into the blazing furnace. The next part of their answer is, in my opinion, actually quite a human response. They say, if our God whom we are serving exists, he is able to rescue us from the furnace of the blazing fire, and he will rescue us, O king, from your power as well. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we don't serve your gods, and we will not pay homage to the golden statue that you have erected. See, they didn't say, we're sure God will rescue us. They said, we believe he can, but even if not, we still will serve him. Their trust wasn't in the outcome. It was in the character of God. So of course, Nebuchadnezzar, even more infuriated with their response, orders the furnace to be heated up 7 times hotter than usual. He probably wanted to make extra sure that this God that Sam was talking about had absolutely zero chance of quenching the flames. Try and get yourself out of this one, he's probably thinking. Now, the story could have then gone, God then brought a sudden downpour of rain to quench the fire, or God sent an angel from heaven to carry Sam to safety. But that didn't happen. We then find out that these 3 men are still tied up and thrown into the fire. It's what Nebuchadnezzar sees next in the fire that is the clincher to this story. Nebuchadnezzar is shocked to see not only was Sam completely unharmed, but he could see 4 figures in the furnace, not 3. And he recognizes immediately that that appearance of the 4th was like that of a god. Did anyone else catch the Easter egg in the new song that Shane chose for Trusting God? You see, God didn't stop Sam from going into the fire. He joined them in it, the 4th man in the fire. Sometimes God doesn't stop the storm or put out the flames. Sometimes God doesn't give you a favorable medical diagnosis or stop you from making a poor financial decision. Sometimes God doesn't stop a terrible person from being elected into power. But no matter the situation, God is always right there with us. You might not see the way out right now, but God does, and he's not panicking. If we place our trust in knowing that God is always by our side through all of life's seasons, how might this influence the way we respond to tough situations or when things aren't going the way we planned? What could trust look like? Well, we can become less fearful and more peaceful. If we really trust that God is with us, not watching from afar, but in it with us, then fear loses its grip. We stop catastrophizing every unknown. We don't need to control everything. We can rest even in uncertainty. Philippians chapter 4, verses 6-7 reminds us that the peace of God guards our hearts and minds when we bring our worries to him. There was actually a line in that song as well, in Trusting God, that I think really resonates with this point. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I know the author of tomorrow has ordered my steps. Next, we can act with courage instead of compromise. When we know that God is with us, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, we stop bending to pressure. We can stand for what's right, even when it's unpopular, because we know we're not standing alone. We can love others more freely. When we're secure in God's nearness and closeness, we no longer love from a place of emptiness. We love from a place of fullness. You don't need everyone's approval or applause. You're already loved and held by the one who matters most. We can be patient in waiting. I think this is the one that we find hardest as well. If we trust that God is with us, even when he hasn't moved yet, we can wait without despair. We stop interpreting the delay as absence. And we can find hope in suffering. Knowing that God is with us in the fire gives us resilience. Pain stops being meaningless. It becomes a place where God really reveals himself. When we trust that God is always with us, we begin to stand more boldly, speak more gently, forgive more easily, love more freely, worry less, hope more. We start living, as Jesus said, as people who abide in him, not striving for God's approval, but resting in his presence. How does trust look in your life? Are you prepared to let go and let God catch you? Will you be able to recognize his presence when you step into the fire?